What's up? What's up? What's happening? It's yours truly, Javon Freeman, back with another one. I just want to say I was watching the last video and I realized that I never transitioned the scene for you guys to actually see the video. So it was really like an audio listen, but I think that was a good thing because that forces you to put on your thinking caps and actually critically listen to what's being said. Anyway, I want to switch it up a bit. Wanted to look at a different media source. You know, we try to stay diverse over here, not just diverse, but we try to take in as much information as we can with as many platforms as we can and get a nice perspective and a nice well-rounded look at what's going on in the world around us. So this one is from MSNBC, and we are going to see what they are talking about because they're saying it's all hands on deck. I don't know what for, but we'll see what's going on.
About Republicans in the House. Now we have House Democrats ramping up their efforts to respond to Donald Trump's sweeping overhaul of the federal government by creating a task force that could lead to lawsuits against the administration. The new Rapid Response Task Force and litigation.
We are engaged in a multifaceted struggle to protect and defend everyday Americans from the harm being inflicted by this administration. Hakeem Jeffries. My thing is, what harm? What harm? The only people that think they're in harm are these people that were getting right on these federal contracts that were basically doing nothing. It's like the extra fat on a cow that is actually just unhealthy. Like, yeah, it's still early. We're gonna listen, see what they got to say.
Working group is part of what leader Hakeem Jeffries describes as a, quote, multifaceted struggle to protect and defend everyday Americans from the harm being inflicted by this administration. And the task force will be chaired by Congressman Joe Neguse. And Assistant Minority Leader Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado joins us now. Welcome. Good to see you, sir.
Greetings, sir. Okay, Congressman, this task force has inspired lots of conversation. Online, people wanted to highlight, if you will, that there are members of the task force, you know, who didn't necessarily scream rapid response, but you are, in fact, the chair of this task force. Can you just, this is your opportunity to talk directly to the American people. What do you say to the folks that are like, I don't think House Democrats have found their footing yet?
Look, I think that they're wrong, Simone. First and foremost, it's good to be with you, and thanks for having me on. Michael, I think, outlined...
I'm just saying, he ain't got no mustache. I'll be judging.
Articulated well the context by which this task force was created. It's a perilous moment for our republic, given the unlawful and unconstitutional executive orders that have been issued by this administration, the agency actions that you all have described in great detail that are harming everyday Americans. And the leader Jeffries of our caucus, has made clear to members that it's an all-hands-on-deck moment that requires a decisive and comprehensive response on the part of House Democrats, particularly given Republicans' obstinance and, as Michael said, their complete capitulation to Donald Trump. So this...
Okay, all right, we're going to let this play. But we're almost 2 minutes in, and nobody said anything that is actual harm. What is the actual harm being done?
This task force, in effect, is a clearinghouse for developing legal and legislative responses, substantive responses to the Trump administration's lawlessness, and doing everything that we can to try to reverse any unlawful actions that are harming the American people. There are different components of that. As you mentioned, it's a diverse task force that reflects the diversity of our...
Bro, I just want to get through this, but it's so much BS. How much lawlessness? The only lawlessness we've seen so far was the retirement mine. That was crazy. The judge blocking Elon Musk access, who was granted access on behalf of the on behalf of the executive chief, the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump himself, when the judicial branch has no say-so over the Treasury because the Treasury is under the executive branch. Like, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. It gets so much harder and harder to listen to the BS, but you got to know what's being said, I guess.
Caucus, and we're working to leverage the skills and the talents of a lot of really incredible public servants in the House Democratic Caucus, including, by the way, a number of exceptional litigators, former prosecutors whom you've had on your program, people like Dan Goldman, Jasmine Crockett, who are members of the task force. We met about 48 hours ago in Washington, or a little more than 40 hours ago. We'll be meeting again soon, and we'll have more to share with the country as developments change on the ground in what is a very fast evolving legal landscape, as you all know.
There's the legal piece of this. There's also, as you said, the legislative maneuvering. There was a headline Monday in The Hill that I want to talk to you about, a Schumer warning of Trump shutdown, laying out a four-pronged plan for Democrats. Democrats in the Senate and House are looking more seriously at the looming funding deadline as an important point of leverage to slow or stop President Trump's and Elon Musk's freezing of federal payments, lockout of federal workers, and plans to slash government spending by trillions of dollars.
I don't get why that's a bad thing. It's the people doing the jobs. It's your truckers. It's your nurses. It's your plumbers. It's your excavation workers. It's your construction workers. It's your gas station clerks. It's your welders. It's your painters who are funding these federal employees who were already exposed for not even being in the office. Yet we're the ones that gotta show up. It's your toilet scrubbers that got to show up to the job every day to get a minimum pay wage. And then you sit there and tell me you don't even have to show up and we're technically paying you. And and us saying we don't want to pay you is a bad thing. And you don't even have to show up to your job. Still got about 6-7 minutes left. I really don't want to listen to it.
Give us a sense of what that might look like.
Yeah, I would say two things. First, any strategy with respect to how we're going to approach the March 14th funding deadline would ultimately be made by Leader Jeffries in consultation with the House Democratic Caucus and internal conversations that we'll have in the coming weeks on that front. However, I would say, and I think that the article you just referenced, as well as a number of others in the last few days, speak to this. Republicans have a majority in the House of Representatives, a majority in the U.S. Senate, and of course, a Republican president at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Any shutdown of the federal government would be caused by Republicans and their inability to get their act together and instead to focus on priorities that are deeply out of step with the American people. That fault lies with them.
That's not true. That's not true at all. And we've seen there's so much corruption in the government. I'm about to, you keep talking that BS, I'm gonna pull up that APAC tracker. But there are Republicans that are really Democrats in disguise. Well, yeah, the goal is to listen and get through the video.
I'm alone. And just to give you an example, Alicia, as to what I'm referring to, just last week, Republicans passed out of a budget committee a $4.5 trillion plan that would gut Medicaid, cut $800 billion from Medicaid and health care services for Americans across the country, for tax cuts for billionaires.
Hey man, I was talking to my grandmom about this and she was distraught, but I had to bring it to her attention. I'm like, the money that they're cutting is usually for people that already have pre-existing situations that they're more than capable of getting rid of on their own. It's not like they're showing up with like stage 1 cancer or something like that. No, a lot of these people are obese and they sit on their ass all day and they don't want to go outside and work out. Why would I want to fund your health and you sit there on your ass? And then I can't even pay my own medical bills, or I got to take a pay cut because it's too much out of my check. Man, please, I'm doing everything I can to not walk in those hospital doors and you getting free medical on the expense of my tax dollars. I would prefer my tax dollars going into better education for police officers so we stop seeing videos of corrupt police activity. But no, the goal, you know what, Jay, the goal is to get through the video.
Instead of spending their time on efforts like that one that I believe are extreme and, as I said, not broadly supported by the American people, they ought to be working to fund the government. But if past is prologue, it is very clear that they don't intend to do.
Hold on. Let's run that back. Let's run that back. Because I think I heard that correctly.
On efforts like that one that I believe are extreme and, as I said, not broadly supported by the American people, they ought to be working to fund the government. But if past is prologue.
How is it not on the behalf of the American people when Trump won the popular vote and I think he won the electoral vote as well? Like, and then to be funding the government. Fuck you. Excuse my language. Excuse my see. You know, it's crazy. I've worked factory jobs. I've scrubbed toilets for others that were sick and dying, who didn't even have people coming to visit them in their final hours, who couldn't even get up, who were people that were jaundiced. Okay, people. Oh man, I done sat and shared smiles with people. Less than an hour later, they died, and their loved ones probably won't ever know because they probably ain't even have loved ones. Like, that's the reality of the world. I can't even buy me a 3-piece suit. But y'all deserve to be funded. Look at your suit and tie. I can't even go buy me one if I wanted to. What?
Prologue, it is very clear that they don't intend to do that.
So, Congressman, here's where I have a small problem, and I need your help to understand it and figure it out. So, you've got this Rapid Response Task Force and Litigation Working Group. You have described just now what Republicans passed out of committee that guts the very thing that strikes at the heart of poor people in the country, Medicaid, for example. And then you have what Senator Warner said in Politico about the brand issue for Democrats. I think the Democrats' brand is really bad, and I think this was an election based on culture, the Virginia Democrats said at a political pub event on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. Now, and
the Democrats' kind of failure to connect on cultural biases with a wide swath of Americans is highly problematic. And we talking about the American people didn't vote for this. We clearly did.
Democrats' kind of failure to connect on a cultural basis with a wide swath of Americans is hugely problematic. So,
hello, Mark Barden here.
This litigation problematic. So, at once you're standing up this litigation working group and this task force around things that we see happening to federal employees. But on the other hand, you also have this narrative around actual stuff that's impacting Americans culturally, financially. How do you square that? And does this task force fit into it, or is it just strictly a litigation thing? Your guys aren't going to worry about branding, because I think the priority should be branding, and the litigation and all of that gets caught up and brought up into the branding, and that's one more tool that you use to brand an argument or a narrative. You help me understand how.
Did he just help him with his answer? He just helped him with his answer, and then we're 6 minutes and 25 seconds into the video. We still have yet to hear a concrete problem. Hey.
Democrats fit all these pieces together in the face of this onslaught by MAGA?
That's a great question, Michael. I think it's a thoughtful question. It's one that we're going to continue to grapple with, and that we're ultimately going to need to resolve in advance of the 2026 election. I would say, with respect to the litigation working group, the goal, the purpose behind that particular task force is very clear. It's addressing the crisis that's in front of us and the 5-alarm fire that we are dealing with respect to the unconstitutional and unlawful orders that the administration has issued. However, I certainly concur with your broader point about the need for us to offer an optimistic and hopeful vision for the future of our country and what Democrats ultimately care about in terms of improving the quality of life and the daily life of Americans writ large. Those are not mutually exclusive of each other. We're going to have to do both on a parallel path, and our caucus is certainly working on addressing both. I would just say more broadly, it is clear to me this administration has no intention of pursuing any policies that will make the lives better for everyday Americans or Coloradans that I represent in my state. Pure and simple, that none of what they're pursuing thus far would make lives better for Americans, or nothing that they're doing would decrease the cost of living or address the fundamental challenges that most families are grappling with. House Democrats have a series of solutions that I think ultimately speak to that, but you're certainly right that we're going to have to amplify that and perhaps turn the volume up a bit on the latter.
Congressman, these are certainly precarious times, and I think the news, it just seems like all we are reporting is bad news, but we do have a little good news we want to talk about. You posted this on Friday on Valentine's Day on Threads, and I saw this, and we thought it was just so heartwarming. Your wife rang the bell.
Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I had enough. It's so tough listening to these people. Like, oh my gosh, the plantation is real. Anyway, let me know what you think. Yeah, I'm over it. Deuces.